Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of this little show that I like to call Spill It. Spill It is a show where I get to speak to inspirational people and share some inspirational stories to connect people together, inspire others, and help people learn something new. This episode is episode 82, Tea Time with Marcus, all about LGBTQIA, as we delve further into the discussion that I had with my amazingly brilliant guest, Max. Max, if you haven't watched the episode, make sure you go back, make sure you listen to it, you watch it. If you want to go further back, Max was on our very first official episode of Spill It, way back in season 1, and Max came back to be my very first guest of season 3 to get the ball rolling with coming to an end of season or the series of Spill It. So yeah, make sure that you have followed that conversation. But we are going to touch on some of the things that we discussed then. And of course, I'm always open to your comments and opinions. It's a conversation at the end of the day. Okay, and when you get in here, make sure that you like, you rate, you subscribe, whatever it is you want to do, make sure that you do that. And of course, if you are getting part of the conversation, then all you have to do is drop a comment live on air, and you are then part of the discussion too. If you are listening to this on playback or you are listening to this on the podcast, then you can always drop a comment or a question into my inbox. My inbox is easy. It's marcus@spillit.uk. That'll come directly to me. I will then give you an answer on the following week's episode. It is as simple as that. Simple. You'll also get a direct message from me, but there are some that I like to read out on air as well. So yeah, make sure that you drop me a comment or a question in the box. If you want to follow me on all my socials, you're more welcome to do that as well. All my socials are the same. It's @that_Marcus W. Simple. And of course, the last thing that I ask for is to hit that share button. It is important only because of the fact that we get to share this out to the wider audience out there. We get to share this out to people who might not necessarily know anything about Spill It, may not have heard anything about it, or may just be wanting something new to listen to, because we all like a good little podcast every now and again, don't we, just to listen to. So and here's mine, so there you go. But yeah, share it out, because we've had some amazing conversations on here. Like every single week we have had a new guest coming on to talk about whatever they want to talk about to help inspire others. And if you share this out to your audience, to your followers, to your peoples, then you never know, somebody else these videos, these recordings, they may help somebody else. Okay, are you ready for my little section? Yeah, of course you are. It's What's My Ick. Disgusting! Of course it is. What's your ick? Well, if you don't know by now what an ick is, here is a quick explanation for you. An ick is basically when somebody does something, you just think, you know what, this person is an all right person. They could be a really good looking person. They could be somebody that you think, fancy. Or it could be somebody that you just think, and you know what, you're on my wavelength, quite like you, maybe friends, whatever. But they do something and you just think, nope, not for me, thank you very much. Well, I've got how do I put it? I've got an ick that is very specific, but it's something that happened to me today, and I just thought, I've gone right off you. It's when you are talking to someone and they are basically actively not listening to you. They're basically just waiting for themselves, or waiting for that space, waiting for you to finish, and they can just hop right in there and say what they want to say without actually listening to what you're actually saying. I mean, I can be having a really, really important conversation with someone, and they're obviously going, yeah, yeah, yeah. That really annoys me. It really annoys me because of the fact that I know that you are not listening and you are just waiting for me to just finish a little bit so then you can chime in with whatever you want to say. And I've started deliberately making my stories a little bit longer, purely just for the fact that I want them to be waiting that extra bit of time. And I'm not bad for it, you know. I just hate it. I genuinely just hate it. I get active listening. I 100% get active listening. You know, we get told about it, you know, when somebody's speaking to you, even if it's like somebody of importance and they're speaking to you, we've got to go, yeah, yeah. Because you're showing that, you know, you understand them on a level, or that you understand them by acknowledging their emotions and mirroring them and things like that. I get all of that. What I don't get are the people who go above and beyond with it, and it ends up just them going, yeah, 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 yeah. Like, stop. Just calm down. Actually listen to the things that I'm saying, and then you'll be able to respond correctly. It's not hard, is it? But yeah, it happened to me today. I was trying to talk to someone, and just over and over again, they were just speaking over me, and they were going too much with the active listening. It was as I was talking, and this is no exaggeration. It was literally, yeah, 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 and it got to a point where I was just like, I'm gonna have to walk away from this conversation because you are not listening to me. You are. It's active listening gone wild. So yeah, I understand active listening. I genuinely do. But there are certain people who are just waiting for that space, and then they can just chime in and say whatever they want to say. So they use the active listening thing, but they take it to the next level. And you know that they're not actually listening to you. What they're doing is they're waiting for that space to just jump in. And that really, really gets me. Today, it just got a little bit too much for me. So yeah, I had to just walk away. But that, ladies and gentlemen, thems and friends, was my ick for today. Disgusting! Okay, it is a Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. But the purpose of the Friday one, so normally at this point of the podcast, we would be bringing out a guest and we would be having a conversation. But as it is a Friday, it is my time to talk with you. So this, as I said previously, when we did the introductory episode of season 3, Fridays are my time, and it is where I get to spill my tea on the things that I want to talk about in relation to the episode that we did on the Monday. So on Monday, we talked to Max. Max is a trans male who during lockdown, when they first came onto the show back in 2020, he was talking about the struggles with transgender and the transgender journey and the lack of help from the government and the lack of help when it comes to things like the NHS, the system of the NHS for the trans journey and all of that lot and more. And then he came back onto the show on Monday to discuss what that transitional period has been like and what his journey was like after the lockdowns. And I just want to say another, and I said it on Monday, I'll say it again, it's an absolute pleasure having Max on the show talking about his own personal journey. He was just so very open, very honest, and very vulnerable with us as well. It was such a great episode. I urge you, if you have not watched that episode yet on Monday, make sure that you go back and you listen to it. It was a really, really cool one. With regards to the episode itself, there were a lot of things that we touched on, and this is now my time to talk to people at home, people listening, people watching this tonight, or people watching this on playback or listening to it on the podcast. It is my time to kind of delve into the LGBTQIA plus community, and specifically the issues that we discussed on Monday. In my time, and this is now my intro, and I know I've had a couple of emails asking, when are we going to hear the jingle? Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, friends and friends. It is tea time. Okay. I obviously just had to get the mug in place. But, right, more serious. So, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that we discussed on Monday. We touched on number one specifically was the representation of the trans community, and I'm going to open this up to being the representation of the LGBTQIA plus community in media outlets, in film, in TV, even just things like in books, in the written word and things like that. There is a lack of, or has been previously, a severe lack of representation because of the fact that when we find films, when we find TV shows, and we delve into the written word, or the script, the film itself, the scenes that feature an LGBTQIA plus character, you then find that in the writer's room, there is no representation. So when we look at media and we look at films and we look at books on audio and anything really that would be deemed as representation of the LGBTQIA plus community, there is a severe lack of it, and we've got to look past what we visually see on the screens. So we look past what we visually see on the TV shows or the films or whatever, or the scenes or whatever you're looking at, and you've got to look at the writer's room. And we touched on this on Monday. The problem is that in the writer's room, there is no representation, or there has not been any representation. And that is clear with the way that these shows, these films and these characters are written. They are written as a gay male, for example. The gay males are always written as a flamboyant, feminine presenting male. They are written as the funny, sassy kind of gay stereotype. And if you look back on TV and you look back on film, you can see that. Even when you date it back to things like Jafar from Disney. Now, Jafar obviously wanted to marry Jasmine, but he was presented in a feminine type of way. He was very like this with his fingers and his hands, and he talked a bit more flamboyant, and like that's how he was written, because the idea of the gay stereotypical male was obviously back then, it was viewed as like an evil type of character. It was a very sleazy type of character. And so therefore he talked a little like this, and he was all like this with his hands. And that just shows a severe lack of research. And obviously they just wanted to portray this type of character. So obviously back in as I said, let's keep alongside the Disney route, for example, with the example of that I've just given you with Jafar. Obviously, as I said, Jafar was wanting to try and get with Jasmine so he could become the Sultan. but he was presented as a very effeminate male. When you look at other TV shows or films that present a gay male, they are all stereotypical gay males. They wear like the crop tops, the short pants. They go after all the boys. They talk a little like this, and they go around and they go like this. And even in like cartoons, you can tell which ones they are supposed to be gay, because that's how the writers' room have viewed it and wanted to portray that type of character. Same again if you have a lesbian in a TV show or a film. They are presented as a butch type of woman. They are presented as the woman who wants to play football or soccer or rugby, or the girl who has a shaved head. She has really, really short hair, and it plays into that stereotype. When you think about trans, when you think about the trans community and the way that they've been presented in media, you think about the masculine looking woman or the womanly looking male. And they always make a joke of like either missing parts or switching parts, or that I can be like a man, but I can also be like a woman. Like, they play this stereotype, and also they do it so then as they are presenting this trans male or trans female, they visually look like the opposite sex. So if they are presenting a trans male, they visually look feminine. Or if they are presenting a trans female, they visually make them look very masculine. And this is the type of representation that we have had as the LGBTQ plus community in film and in media. And it is absolutely shocking. Not only that, I mean, we've had some absolutely phenomenal representation recently, and me and Max, we talked about one particular show, and if you have not watched it yet, please go ahead and watch it. It is a TV show called Pose, Pose, Pose. And it's a show that was written, directed by Black trans women. Also, Black trans women are the actors in there, and there are Black gay males in there as well, and Black gay females in there as well. But it is a full representation of this is what I mean about getting into the writer's room. Because if you compare some like a TV show like Pose, which goes through the decades of what it was like maneuvering through the AIDS pandemic and being told that you aren't a woman if you were born a male, and vice versa, and that you were told that you are the reason why AIDS is spreading, and all of that lot, all of this shite. When you look at that and you look at that storytelling process during Pose, and you compare that with TV shows and films that have presented trans male and trans female characters, or gay and lesbian people, you can compare the two, and you know which ones had a full representation of the LGBTQIA plus community within the writer's room. And I come back to the writer's room every single time. We've talked about it through season 2. We talked about it a few times in season 1 as well. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to who is in the writer's room. So yeah, it was interesting to talk about that. It was interesting to talk about representation within media. And do I think that there could be more? Of course there could be more done. it's nowhere near where we need it to be. And the issue that you've got is that there is still a huge amount of backlash, and whether people like it or not, there is a huge amount of backlash the moment that there is any affection towards like gay males or gay females, or even if there is a trans character in the scene, there is a huge amount of backlash. So the things that I see on social media, for example, if there's a scene, so here we go. So this was awful to read, and so there's the new Marvel films that have obviously been coming out, and they've been doing more and more. And one of the films that they released was the Eternals, and in the Eternals, there is some like love triangle stuff happening with one of the main lead males who is in love with and had a relationship with one of the females, but then them two broke up and went their separate ways or whatever, and then the female has met a human male, and now there's a bit of a love triangle thing happening, or like both of the men want the woman, Cersei, and yeah, so there was that. And then there was another relationship happening. It wasn't like a love relationship, as in like I am massively in love with you and blah blah blah. It wasn't a romantic love story, but it was a man who loved a woman and a woman who loved a man because they were there for each other. And they did it really, really well. We found that one of the characters had settled down with, so one of the male characters had settled down with another male, was married, and had a child. And they didn't present that way at all. There wasn't flamboyant or anything like that, like your normal stereotypes that you would find in TV and film. But the Eternals, when they were all banding together, they went to his house and they knocked on the door, and he was like, "Oh, right, okay, come in." And then they glossed over the fact that he was with another male and had a child, and he was just like, "I can't leave my husband, I can't leave my daughter." And they were like, "Oh," and then they were like, "Oh, well, it could be the end of the world," blah blah blah, standard hero stuff. And then he was like, "Okay, cool." And then he kind of packed his stuff and he left. And they left it as that, and that was it. It wasn't like they didn't make a big deal out of it. They didn't have like a full-on coming out story or anything like that. And then I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed the film, and even though the film received different reviews for different reasons, but ultimately, I enjoyed the fact that they didn't make it a big deal, because that's exactly how we get equality and we get representation in TV and film and other media outlets, is if we don't make a big song and dance about it and it's just there. And I think that they did it brilliantly. And then I read the comments on social media about that movie, and there were so many horrible, horrible comments that were made saying that, oh, it's awful the fact that Marvel now have to feel like they have to make this relationship the priority just to try and tick a box. Or they were just going, "Oh, how dare you put," they like, "Oh, Stan Lee will be turning in his grave." I was just like, this is bizarre. I mean, I ended up commenting. It was something, it wasn't anything bad. It was more funny, to be fair. I ended up commenting just something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, how dare they portray a relationship like this? This is absolutely horrendous. How can this woman, this straight woman, be playing these two males off from each other? How dare they? How dare they give her more screen time than the other relationships that were there?" And the only reason that I did that was because they really did gloss over this same-sex relationship, which obviously is the right thing to do, and I cannot commend them more for doing that. But these people were just fixated on this same-sex relationship, even though it was like 2 minutes. It was in 2 minutes. That was it. But they were so fixated on this same-sex relationship that they completely forgot about the fact that the main character was talking about her 2 different love interests the majority of the film. And that's because of the fact that people have become, I don't know, how do you say it? It's like it doesn't bother them. Like, obviously, if there's a heterosexual relationship in front of them, it doesn't matter about that. They only fixate on the one that they're not used to seeing, shaking it up a little bit. I said it on Monday's episode, actually. Like, when you're making people feel uncomfortable, you're doing things right. And that's what happened. Essentially, it made people feel uncomfortable. And for that, Marvel, I commend you. But yeah, there's more. There's all sorts of different things you can see on social media. So, and I have talks with people quite a lot with regards to LGBTQIA plus issues, and people say, "Oh yeah, but nobody really bothers anymore." And I really do wish that was true, but unfortunately, it's not. So, attacks on LGBTQIA plus communities, and obviously more. There's attacks on BIPOC people as well, but specifically talking about the LGBTQ plus community, attacks, like unprovoked attacks, homophobic violence, transphobic violence is on the rise, and that's what's scary. And I don't know why. I don't know why it's on the rise. I genuinely have no idea, because, and we talked on Monday about the great thing about social media, the great thing about, like, TikTok, for example, like with the algorithm helping you find a community straight off the bat because of its very powerful algorithms and the AI recognizing like what you're interacting with and can help put you in place with your community, if you will. The great thing about social media and TikTok, for example, is the fact that there is a hell of a lot more representation out there, and people speaking their truths and telling them, you know, who they are and what trans is, and educating people and all of that lot, all of that and more. There's all of that. The issue is the fact, though, that I don't understand how there is still a rise in attacks, physical attacks. I don't understand how there's still a rise, percentage-wise. There is a rise of at least 21% of crime, like, towards the LGBTQ plus community. I don't understand how more and more slurs and awful words are being said to the LGBTQ plus community. I don't understand when we have more information, we have more respect, we have more representation, we have more speakers, we have so much more than we did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But yet attacks are on the rise. We have violence on the rise. We have awful words being said on the rise. And that's really disappointing. It makes me really disappointed that we are going backwards. And I genuinely don't understand why. I don't understand why we are going backwards. But if there's anything that we can do, and if there's anything that as an individual I can do to help support people or to help inform people, then I will do what I can do. And that's why, and I said it on the season 3 opener, like Life After Spill It, that's why I am going to be starting up my business, That's Kind of Gay. And it's going to be holding events around the country in different schools and colleges and universities and workplaces to help educate and to help get the message out there about what Pride is actually about. I mean, how many people, for example, would know that Pride, when you look at what Pride is at the minute, how many people would look at Pride and think, well, this is actually a protest? At the minute, it's just a parade. It's a party. Obviously, in some places or some parts across the country, especially in the UK, there are more and more Pride events that are talking about the issues within the LGBTQ plus community, using it as an example or using it as a platform to talk about where we've come from. Preston Pride, for example, we had Debs on, the organizer of Preston Pride. We had her on around, it was last year. It was it was in September last year. And if you've not watched that episode, make sure you go back and give it a watch or give it a listen. It's up to you. But we had Debs coming on, and she does an amazing job with Pride. She makes sure that people are aware of why we have Pride, why it's important. There are other Pride events around the country in the UK, for example, Manchester, which, I mean, there are two things that happen now in Manchester because people had had enough with the main one. But the main Pride, the one that people go to, they spend so much money. And the tickets are so extortionate. They get celebrities down and they make it just a big party, essentially. And it's lost its meaning. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to launch something called That's Kind of Gay, which is my little side business where I'll be going to universities, colleges, schools, etc., holding different events, and also being able to connect parents of LGBTQ plus people together so they can find their own community as well. So they can get the answers that they need and they can find their own support network. Because I do think as well, and I have no shame in saying this, I do think that there is a lack of support for parents of LGBTQ plus people. I think that with parents, they kind of have this thing on them, like, you know, oh, hi mom, hi dad, I'm gay, or I'm lesbian, or I'm transgender, or non-binary, etc. And they don't have, not all the time, sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't have the tools to be able to have further conversations with them, to talk to them about practicing safe sex and what happens if, you know, oh, I'm gay, mom, and, you know, I was just wondering, you know, about relationships and dating and sex and all that lot, and or whatever. And, like, you know, how many parents can say with their son or their daughter that they'd be able to talk about the birds and the bees if they was to get into a relationship with the opposite sex? But then how many parents will be able to have that same conversation and feel comfortable talking to their son or their daughter if they came out as gay? How would that conversation be different? You obviously talk through experience, you see. So I wanted to offer parents an opportunity to learn more and to get resources and to get information, to find other parents of LGBTQ plus people. And so that's why That's Kind of Gay is going to be born. But yeah, representation, it's a sucker. A bit of an emotional episode, this one. I didn't realize that I was going to get a little bit emotional about it. But yeah, so yeah, representation has to be more. Also, what has to be more is the government stepping in to be able to offer safe spaces for people of the LGBTQIA plus community. We need the government to do more when it comes to transgender rights, gay rights, lesbian rights. One of the things we talked about was on Monday with Max was the fact that conversional therapy has been ruled as inhumane and cannot be given to people who identify as lesbian, bisexual, transgender. lesbian, bisexual, lesbian, gay, and bisexual. However, they left out transgender, which means that there's no security there. There are people out there who are parts of different communities or part of different religions or part of different excuse me. There are people around the country who come from different backgrounds, come from different religions, and come from different families, and come from different support networks and ways of life, let's say. And if they, I don't want to talk about like religion like as a whole, but if, for example, they in their religion it was okay to do conversional therapy, then it's fine, and you can't call the police and say, "Oh, hey, by the way, I'm being my conversional therapy is torturing me," and there's nothing that can be done about that. I think that's absolutely disgusting. So the more that we do, the more that we talk about it, the more that we get involved in stuff like this, and we have a conversation and we alert more people, then change will happen. The more people that speak about it, the better, because change will happen. The more times that we make people feel uncomfortable about something, the better. So my ask of everyone who is listening to this, or watching this live, or listening to this on playback, or listening to this on the podcast, or however you are listening to this, my ask and my plea is to talk about this and to do research and to get information. My inbox is always open if you want to speak to me. I had a yawn coming there. If you want to speak to me and you want to get some more information on anything that I've talked about today, if you want to get more information on the LGBTQIA plus community, if you want to get more resources, if you want to just have a conversation just to find out what's going on in the world of the community, then you can reach out to me. My inbox is always open. There is a plethora of information online that you'll be able to resource and be able to screen grab, and research yourself. There is absolutely hella lot out there. If you know someone who may be going through conversional therapy, please reach out to them. It doesn't have to continue. We can get them out of there. There are people who do not, unfortunately, come out the other side of conversional therapy, and if they do, they can be damaged for life. There are people who have, for example, here in the UK, there are people who have had severe depression for years after, who have eventually taken their own life. There are people here in the UK who have gone through conversional therapy, who have gone on to actually murder other people. There are people out there who have gone through conversional therapy and it has not worked, and so therefore they have just killed themselves there and then because they have felt like they are wrong. There are people out there who have killed themselves during conversional therapy because it has been that bad for them to continue. We need to be able to talk about things like this. We need to be able to raise this with the right people. We need to be able to have a conversation around this so then more and more people are aware of what's going on, so then we can have some form of resolution. And the only resolution for this is to ban conversional therapy across the board. It is not humane. They've already said that because they said that with L, G, and B. They've said that with the lesbian, gays, and bisexuals, that you cannot do conversional therapy because it is inhumane. However, they left out the T, they left out the transgender community. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Excuse me. Oh, that was some spicy tea today. But yes, my only ask is that we have conversations about this, and my ask is that you do your research and we do have conversations. You reach out where you can do. we help where we can. This podcast was created to connect people together, inspire others, and help bring around some change through teaching something new. If we can connect with other people and we can connect with people who might share the same mind, the same mindset as us, if we can inspire change through conversation, if we can teach people something new about what's going on in the world, maybe, just maybe, be a better place. Well, that was my tea for today. Yes, that was my tea for today. Yes, it was a little bit heavy, let's say. I mean, it's because Spill is coming to an end. I am a very passionate person, and I will talk about the things that I feel like we need to talk about. It is very, very important. Or some of these things I'm going to be talking about are very, very important. And so therefore, it is essential that we talk about these things. Absolutely essential that we talk about these things. And with Spill It coming to an end, I want to make sure that we box off absolutely everything and we get a full stop to all of my subjects that we'll be talking about throughout this season. So yeah, if I get a little bit passionate about something, I apologize. I just care a lot, absolutely lot. But yeah, I hope that's okay. Well, that does bring us to the end of today's episode. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me rant on, maybe getting a little bit emotional there. But it is what it is, and we fully enjoy that. Oh, I thoroughly enjoy it anyway. I enjoy getting a little bit passionate and having a bit of a heated discussion because it just shows that I bloody well care. Next week on Spill It, I don't like that. Let's try that again. Next week on Spill It, I have got a returning guest. We have got Nathan Paul coming on the show. Now, you might remember Nathan Paul when he came on and talked about men's mental health and why mental health was important. Well, he will be coming back on the show to reiterate exactly what we've been saying all along, that mental health is important, especially men's mental health as well. We went through those statistics last week about how much of an increase there has been in men's mental health and suicide and all of that lot. So we'll be talking about that loads more on Monday's episode. So I hope that you stay tuned for that. Don't you worry. I know that you've joined a little bit late. Don't worry, I know that things are a little bit hectic for you right now. Don't worry, you can always watch it on playback. But yes, I hope that you're well, Linda, and thank you for your amazing comment. I really do appreciate that. If you are wanting to discuss anything that I have talked about on today's episode, has affected you in any way, or you might think that you want some more resources or some information on anything to do with LGBTQIA community, and you want to get it from me or talk more in depth about anything we discussed tonight, you are more than welcome to. Drop me an email. It's marcus@spillit.uk. And for everything Spill It related, you can head over to the website at www.spillit.uk. I hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed tonight's show. And until we spill it again, it's bye for now.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of Spill It. You can catch Spill It live every week over on Facebook, YouTube, and now LinkedIn. You can also catch up with Spill It on the move on your preferred podcast streaming service. And don't forget to follow me on all my socials at @Marcus W. And for anything Spill It related, you can always get in touch with me by dropping me an email, marcus@spillit.uk.
Oh, I'm still on. Oh, I'm still here. Bye, Deborah. I could not just leave, knowing that Deborah was hiding there, waiting and watching in the in the video, and has just dropped a comment saying goodbye. Deborah, we love you so much over in Arizona. Thank you so much for joining. Right, it is time for me to go. So, last time from me, until we spill it again, it's bye for now. Oh, I don't know what I've done. It's broken.